Okay, so there's been a lot of irritation in a short amount of time. And hopefully I will remember the details, but as per the norm, who knows? We'll just see how it goes. So, yesterday. Oh, I should probably not put the speaker on the phone, or on the pillow. Okay, so yesterday, right? Hey, it's like I just said that. My mom and I went to pick up Gracie from school. And on the way back, we had to stop by CVS to get her meds and my dad's meds, right? From CVS. I already said that. It worked out fine because it's like on the way, since this is now a one-way road in front of us, so we had to go like this 4-mile stretch around the block just to get back home, even though school's just literally I think like a little over a mile down the road. So we go to CVS and we're in the drive-thru, and Gracie starts asking about McDonald's. And so my mom gets on her app and starts looking it up, and she gets Gracie some food and orders something for my grandma, and then she asked if I wanted anything. It's like, what are we supposed? It's like, is there a dinner game plan this evening? And her dinner game plan, I've bitched about before, because it was the sliders, and the problem with the sliders is her way of trying to coerce me into doing something, because it's relatively easy to make, and because in the past she asked me to make it before and I went along with it and it was fine. But it then became this thing where anytime she got this shit for these damn sliders, it was because she was going to try to make me make them, right? Literally every single time she gets that stuff, it's because she has every intention of trying to make it my project. And there were a few times I went along with it, but since it's never a conversation, it's just I'm expected to do it, right? That's just she decided she wanted these because she knew that at one point in time she could make me make them, and that was that. And since, I don't love cooking. I really don't. In the right scenarios, I like when it's a collaborative effort on cooking, like with friends and whatnot, but it's like spending time with my mom at all is painful. And, I've talked about that a lot. That whole narcissism thing, and like finding all these different ways in which she's been manipulating me and my brother. And my brother and I had a nice conversation for like 40 minutes today. And because there's been a lot that's been going on. So back to yesterday. She mentioned the sliders. So it's like, well, since we're going to McDonald's anyway, get me 10-piece chicken nuggets, right? So she does. And we get the food and come back to the house, and my mom says she just needs to run in and grab the milk and the pie crusts, and then we can run over to Grandma's house real quick and give her her food and her things and visit for a little bit. I want to go see my grandma. I've talked about that a lot. I don't really particularly care for my grandmother, especially since back in August, she made the comment when what are you doing? I was driving her back home from Indianapolis when my grandfather was in the hospital. If you get off of that, I'll move it. And randomly in the car, she decides we should go get lunch. So we do. And we pass this neighborhood that there's a family that my mom used to babysit their kids that lived in this neighborhood, right? So when we're going past the house, or going past the neighborhood, my grandma just starts talking, and she says, Gidget is now licking my hand, so this is why my camera is now shaking. That's not really helpful. But we go past this neighborhood, and Peppy sat in front of the IVAC and probably swept her butt up. She sets that off periodically if she gets too close to it. Anyway, so we're going past this neighborhood, and the kid, or like the son in that family, is the reason my mom stopped babysitting, because she had the tendency to get out of control when she would go to spank somebody, and like, usually it was me and my brother. But this one particular time, it was this kid, and of course his mom was appropriately pissed when she found out my mom was wailing on her son, because she also, I didn't realize this until a little while ago, apparently my brother said he remembers a time when this kid's mom had to talk my mom down from when she was just wailing on him. And so then when it was her son, and of course she knows that my mom has this tendency to do this thing, right? And to get where she just it was so angry she couldn't even see straight. So it was just just all this rage got channeled into beating whoever was there, right? And usually it was me and my brother. And as we're going past this neighborhood, my grandma makes the comment about how she's surprised that my mom didn't get arrested. And what really hit me in that moment was the fact that my grandmother knew there was some kind of problem going on and chose not to do anything about it, right? So, she willingly allowed these cute little toes. She willingly allowed it to happen and didn't do anything to try to make it better, right? So as soon as my grandma made that comment, it was basically an acknowledgement that yes, she knew there was a problem. No, she chose not to do anything about it, and that's just how it was. And it was that way because that was also how my grandmother was when she was, I think she babysat for a while too, but also with my aunts and my mom, I think. That's kind of the thing. You just kind of check out in the rage and just wail on whatever's there, right? Especially the children. And so I haven't wanted to have anything to do with my grandma ever since then. Because it was the willing admission that, yes, there was a problem. She knew there was a problem. She chose not to do anything about it. So, fuck you, lady, right? That's kind of where I am on this whole thing now, especially the more I've been processing through it and realizing how fucked up this family is. And so, going back to yesterday, my mom is trying to coerce me into going over to visit my grandmother. And I said, no. And she got irritated and said, come on, you can go just for a little bit. It'll be all right. And I said, no, because every single time I am around that woman, something is going to happen and she's just going to fall and I'm expected to go over there later to pick her ass up. And then my mom was trying to say that, she fell the other day when she hadn't been around me. So it's just, she's just falling, you know, because she's old and that's just how things are. But it's like, no, it is literally every single time I am around that woman in any capacity, more stupid shit starts happening. And I say stupid because there was one time she decided that at 83 years old, she should get off of her recliner with the footstool still up and just step over it, and that would be fine. So then when she falls over it, me and my aunt have to go pick her up. Right? So that kind of stuff. I don't need your toenails in my back, dude. So I have no desire to be around her, right? And it makes sense. It's fair, I think. So yeah. But I make that comment. You know, my mom first tries to say that my grandma's just old and just falling all the time, and that's just how it is, kind of a thing. But when she sees that that's not working, you know how I had that video I did a couple weeks ago, I think, that I talked about the Richard Grannon video where he's talking about how the narcissist has two different personas, right? There's the one where they're the victim and everything is just like never working out for them and oh, feel sorry for me and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the terrorist where like they like completely flip when that approach isn't working and like go all sorts of crazy eyed and rage filled and like come at you that way. And literally just that quick, I saw that. And it was a really weird experience. That's one of the things I was talking to my brother about. But it was like, kind of like the mayor in Nightmare Before Christmas where he just turns his head and he's the other one. It was like that. And she went from, oh, just come along with me. It'll be okay. Just for a few minutes to, you know, or I do everything for everybody and blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, there it is. You know, you just see it just poof. You know, and the biggest trigger in that moment was that it wasn't that I had said it. What had happened after I said it was Gracie, who was sitting in the back seat, said that she also did not want to go over there. So since Gracie, you know, seconded that idea that she didn't want to go over there because she'd been the night before, then that was what caused that, you know, that moment of rage. And it was just like, ooh, just watching it and realizing that's literally how fast she flips, right? When the one persona is not working, then she'll shift to the other one and make it, and try to get her way with that one instead. It's like, okay, I see what you're doing, or I really feel what you're doing now, and like I'm starting to understand it more and more because I can see it with so much more clarity than I ever have been able to before. And it's all about them boundaries. Which starts us on this whole other nightmare. So, since my grandmother is not effective, because I don't want to be around my grandmother, we weren't done. No, we were not done. That just means that flying monkey is off the table. There are other flying monkeys, because that's how this whole narcissism works. They rope you in and get you to go along with the stupid shit, and a lot of times you're not even aware of what exactly you're doing and how it is literally going along with the shit that they're wanting you to do. And as the flying monkey, I've been one before, you know. I've talked a lot about how me and my brother used to rat each other out, and we didn't even realize that, okay, we were raised to believe that to have secrets meant that you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. So if he was doing something that I knew about, I didn't want to get in trouble, and I would, or like for not saying something, because then it would be my secret because I knew of this thing and I didn't say anything, right? So then it would lead to me ratting him out or vice versa, because it did go both ways. But yeah, so just, she's got other flying monkeys. And this was demonstrated soon thereafter. So yesterday, after that whole thing, then of course she went over to dog hair to my grandma's house for a while without me and Gracie, and she was enraged about having to do so because we were not doing what we were supposed to do, which is basically we go over there and the energetic vampire that is my grandmother sucks the life force out of us because we're the younger and the healthier ones, and capable of dreaming some kind of dream to have some kind of other life outside of this existence. So therefore they have to suck the life out of those dreams, right? That's what they're doing. And so since me and Gracie, because Gracie is the younger version of this now, since I have started to piece it together, and then I've brought my brother into it and he's piecing it together, we're trying to keep the kid from having to deal with the full extent of what we dealt with. However, she's still been around Grandma a whole hell of a lot, my mom, and it's showing that, that Mom's got her hooks in her, and yeah. So after that whole ordeal, I told my brother what was going on, and I don't remember what exactly he said, but I said something about do not gaslight yourself or me in this situation when we both know that what's going on is bullshit, basically. Because, okay, it was the slider thing. I mentioned the sliders, and he's like, well, she probably just decided she wanted to do those because they were easier. It's like, don't do that. It's like, I can tell you, like, those sliders mean she is literally going to find a way to put it on me to do the things, right? And she did. So she's over at my grandma's house for a while and sends me this message of, well, can you go ahead and put the sliders together since you're still home? I just ignored it. And when I said that to my brother, he had planned on picking Gracie up around 7, and it was like, I think like 7:08, he got here to pick her up and took her home. Now, my mom was back by then, and my brother just sends me a message saying, hey, I'm here. I have the dogs in the car, send the kid out. And so I just went in there and told Gracie, I said, hey, your dad's here and is ready for you. And so she got her stuff together and left. And my mom, I could just see it. She was just like, like that building of the fury was like right there. And just the way she shook her head and like the way she sighed and everything, it's just like, oh yeah, she's not done. So they leave, and I start watching the video that I did yesterday, and I got about a half hour into it, and I was like, I need to skate. Just one of those days, I need to skate. So I went at like 7:30 and skated, and I got 7 miles in. It was one of those where I wasn't sure how much I was going to do, but then it's like, as I kept going, then it was like, well, I don't think I'm ready to be done skating yet. So then I just skate a little further, and the next thing I know, it was like, at one point I was thinking 4, but then the next time I looked, it was like already over, it was like 5.26 or something. It's like, well, might as well just go to 7. So I did. And when I got home, the parents were back in their room, and I did not see anything of them. I think my mom had been, did I already mention that she like came in and was like, well, why didn't you make the sliders? Or I thought you were going to make the sliders for me. That's how she worded it. And I just ignored it. Right. But then I thought she was in the process of making those when I left to skate. But then when I got back, they had like soup instead. So I figured she probably realized since I was leaving that, should go with a different plan. And so she did. And then I get back and they're in their room. And I heard them talking. I don't know what they were talking about. Don't really care. But they were kind of going back and forth on their own shit. And I was trying to stay out of it. And my mom starts like walking up and down the hallway, like sighing angrily and, letting me know she's disappointed in me and my decisions and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing and all this crap. And this kid's got like toes right in my back. Again. But yeah. I think something my dad said or did pissed her off too, and then it was just kind of like downhill from there. And she kept like going up and down the office, and like at one point I think I was watching the video and I had my YouTube page up and was loading it onto the thing, and then she started talking to me and scared the shit out of me. And of course, because I'm watching the video on my phone, I like flip it down, but I also have the YouTube page up and I don't want her knowing anything about that. So it's like I'm trying to get rid of that real quick. So, there's just this moment where she like gloated because she scared the shit out of me because she snuck up on me. And, I think she knows I'm doing something she's not going to approve of, but hasn't figured out how to get in the middle of it just yet. Those toes, dude. So, yeah. So while I was sitting in the office, after I got back from skating, I went ahead and took a shower, and I ate some of the omelet I had at IHOP the other day, then took a shower, and then the tired's starting to hit. Yeah, and then I went back into the office, and she's going back and forth down the hallway and making a big fuss. So when she goes into the laundry rooms and belly aching in there, I think it was something with my dad had a bunch of shit that smelled like pee again, right? And yeah, so I think she was doing a load of laundry, but she was just like, making all the noises and expressing her aggravation and all this stuff. So I just got up and I shut the door real quietly, which is kind of a pain because that door doesn't really do quiet very well. It like sticks, so it kind of thuds when you push on it hard enough to shut it. So yeah, but then I went back to what I was doing with watching the videos and all that stuff. 11:30, I was back in here and I was writing. I think I was journaling for the day, and I finished book 12 yesterday. And started 13. Actually started 13 before I finished 12 because I had like one sheet of paper and the front and back on it left in the old one. But I had these cards that I pulled for yesterday's energy that I wanted to write down because they all seemed like super relevant in various levels for what's been going on. And so I started the new one and just started with writing down the meanings of the cards that were relevant. Right. So then, I do that while I was in the office. Then when I come back in here, and I have both of them because I had to finish out that page too, but also, finish out the sheets or the sheet in the other paper, or other book. as I am in here, I have my door closed, the dogs are in bed, sleeping, and all at once, the door starts creeping open. And my dogs hear it and went nuts. Just barking and, figuring out what the fuck's going on the other side of the door because somebody's screwing with us now. And they went off for a while. But it was my mom, of course, and she's talking about how my dad fell and she can't pick him up and blah, 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 and can I come help her? And it was just kind of like, because we know what this is, literally just trying to find ways to rope me back into her bullshit. And I end up going in there, and I was in there for like 5 or 10 minutes. That room smells so fucking gross. I couldn't hardly stand to be in there. And she said, they were just laying there in bed. They have this king-size bed, which is, it's got the 2 twin-sized mattresses put together, and there's like a big gap in the middle of the mattresses because that's where everything, like all the pillows and everything fall. And, he just slid right off the bed. And she said he didn't say help or anything, but he was like growling. It's like, okay. So she does. Oh, so we're both in there. He ended up getting himself up. But it was still this whole ordeal, and I moved some pillows so she could move the mattress back over where it's supposed to be and all that stuff. But he eventually got himself up with minimal assistance. And oh no, that was the second time. The first time was when she said he growled. And I think by the time I got over there, she'd already got him up. And it's like, why the fuck did you bother me? Because you already just handled it without me. But it was just to see if I would go along with her bullshit again, right? So I get over there, and then, he's already up. Never mind, I got him. It's fine, blah, blah, blah. It was about 1:30 when I shut the light off to go to bed. And I think I'd been asleep for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. And she comes in my door again and says, or is all concerned, and I think he might be having a stroke, and we need to go to, I'm going to take him to the hospital and all this crap. It's like, okay, she was just going to take him out to Greenfield. She was going to load him in the truck and get him out there. And she's talking about all this weird shit that he's doing. Like, he took a shower, and like a little in between the falling incidents, took a shower, and when he was trying to put clothes on, he had sweatpants and had one arm in each leg and couldn't figure out why the crotch wouldn't go over his head. So obviously he's confused and doesn't know what's going on. And that wasn't the thing that made her really concerned. That was just a piece that she mentioned after she said he'd fallen again, and I needed to go and help get him up because she was going to take him to the hospital. But since he can't drive because he's possibly having a stroke, and she's not supposed to be driving, oh great, now it's falling on me again. And it did, of course. So I have I'm running on 5 to 10 minutes of sleep. And I'm feeling it. I don't like feeling it like this. This kind of blows, right? But anyway, she's going back and forth talking about this stuff today. When I was in there this morning, it was just, I looked at her and it's like, your room fucking stinks. And she's like, well, it's not me. And it's like, your room fucking stinks all the same. You know, and it was like horrid. And she's, you know, she's talking about getting him up and getting him in there. All she wanted him to do was to go to bed. And he finally was in bed. And then she wanted him to get up because, you know, she felt like she needed to take him to the hospital or whatever. So, that's this whole ordeal, right? And I say, why, if he's possibly having a stroke, are you planning on driving him to the hospital? Why would you not call the ambulance to come pick him up and take him to the hospital? I said, if nothing else, what happens if you get out to Greenfield and find out they can't do anything to treat that? So then you have more time delayed because he's got to go from that place to the next place, right? And then it's just like this whole ordeal. And yeah, so I threw that out there, you know, and at that point she had gotten him we'd gotten him to the couch. He mainly walked on his own, but he was really wobbly, and, you know, she was just supporting his arm more than anything. Gets to the couch. He's getting his shoes on. And we have this conversation. And he makes, okay. I went ahead and called 911 because that's usually how it happens. It's not my mom's going to be the one that thinks to do the thing. It's somebody else has to come up with it and then it's acceptable, but she can't do that. Like, that happened several times. My brother and I have called, you know, the fire department because the grandparents fell or whatever. Like, at one point my grandma broke her knee and elbow because she fell on my aunt's porch, and nobody wanted to call 911 because my grandma was bitching about everything. And then my brother finally was like, I'm calling him, you know, and I had to do that with my grandfather on a few occasions. So it's just like, clearly nobody's smart enough to actually think about the things, even though we've had experiences where, like, okay, my grandfather would get taken to one place and then find out that they couldn't treat him there. We've had that experience, right? So why wouldn't we try to avoid that if it's a stroke, right? I call them, and then the guy is asking me questions, and there were some things he wanted you to be close to the person and asking them questions to see, you know, how they're responding and all this stuff. Keeping in mind, I don't like talking to my dad. I avoid him at all possible costs. You know, I answered the ones I could, and then I said I'm going to hand the phone to my mom and let you talk to her because she's, you know, more aware of what's going on in this situation. And I took the time to put my dogs in my room to lock them up. So, you know, whenever the fire department got here, they weren't a problem, right? And I got their dog and, you know, threw her in their room. So they were all out of the way. And after my mom got off the phone and I went back in there, my dad says he has to pee. He has not been allowed to use my bathroom since I've been back from Alabama because he was going in there and peeing on the floor, and I got pissed when I walked in there in the middle of the night and stepped in it. And I went off on my mom and was like, that's not going to work. It's like, he can't use this bathroom. And then she was like, well, she doesn't want you using this bathroom because, of course, you know, she's got to make me out to be the villain, the monster, the crazy person, because she's the one with the two-faced narcissism thing going on, right? And yeah, so that's what they do, is they do all the things to make you look like the bad guy, the crazy person, all this stuff. So even though she was the one that was cleaning up after my dad when he'd pee on the bathroom floor in the front bathroom and in her bathroom. That's some awful loud panting. She did tell him he couldn't use my bathroom anymore. However, last night, all hell's breaking loose, right? And we think he might be having a stroke, so I kid you not, she goes to take him to my bathroom. I saw that man smirk because she said, well, we'll just go in this one because it's closer. I saw that fucking smirk. I kid you not. And of course, when I go in there again before we leave, he's peed on the floor. And of course just left it there because why should he have to clean up after himself? That's, women's work, right? That kind of bullshit. And yeah. So when the fire trucks, the ambulance got here, they, of course, all of them come in, and they looked about as awake as I was. So it's like, I feel that. Oh, fuck. She's licking my hand again. Of course, they're getting the information they need and doing the things, and I was letting them in from the outside. I was trying to get the things out of the immediate way so that they could come in with the stretcher and all that stuff. And trying to move things around because I had to pull I had to pull a recliner and a dog bed out of the way and that kind of stuff. It wasn't like huge stuff, but it was still, let me get this shit out of the way so you can come do your job. So, yeah. I'm sitting out on the glider by the pond, and I hear my mom say something about, well, can you ask my daughter to come in here so I can talk to her about it? It's like, fuck. What are we doing now? Right? And she's got one of the firemen who has suggested we take him to Community East. Well, they take him to Community East, and we meet them there. And she just cannot stand the thought of that because when we were there in August, it was nasty. And I used to work for Community Health Network. They're pretty on top of their stuff. The thing with that one was it's the emergency room on that side of town. The side of town's kind of sketchier than anything for that one. But it was like, it was summer. I don't know if it might have been raining or something where, some that's getting tracked in or whatever. It was mainly like candy wrappers and stuff that people who were in the waiting room were dropping and just leaving behind because, well, somebody else has to clean it up, right? Because that's acceptable, right? Like my father wants everybody to clean up after his ass and not do anything to help or to participate to, like, everybody's supposed to do the things to cater to the others, right? So that was her problem with there. But having worked for the company, it's like, no, that's like, I know that's a pretty new building, even like they were doing a lot of work on it for a lot of years. And even when I wasn't working there anymore, like I used to have to go there for classes and like training stuff a bunch. And it was fine. So I go in there and the firefighters posing that place as, his suggestion because they are equipped to work with stroke patients. That is one of their specialties at that location, right? So he says that. She says she thinks he's having a stroke. So why wouldn't we go to the obvious choice? And I think the other option was like Methodist or something. It's like, I don't want to drive to Methodist tonight. You know, when my grandpa did his trick, we did that too. We went over to Community East, and they weren't equipped to handle that kind of trauma, so we had to go to the other place. And yeah, we made it. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning when we were driving over there. It was fine, but it was still just one of those things. It was just kind of a pain in the ass because you're driving all over the place in the middle of the night and I'm tired, right? So, you know, firefighter suggested for a good reason, and Mom was just pushing for North because that's where he had his surgery at. And it's like, if they're not equipped for it, why would you go there? Because he's just going to get sent to the other one probably anyway, right? And she's like, well, not necessarily. It's like, whatever, just pain in the ass, right? Whatever. So we end up at East, and it was fine. Except, of course, when we get there, we walk in, you know, and I drove the truck over there. And, of course, there were the little things that were annoying me with the truck. Again, like how we're driving down the road, and the brights come on their own volition. But then as cars come toward us, it shuts those off, which is good. But then the car that was ahead of us with, you know, the tail lights in front of us, it didn't acknowledge that. It didn't pay any kind of attention to that until we got a lot closer. And it's like, I know I don't like people being any kind of that distance away from my car and having their bright lights on. It's like, it annoyed me that I couldn't figure out how to turn that setting off while I was driving because, I mean, I felt bad. I don't want to blind people that are just trying to drive down the road. But we get to the hospital. As soon as we get to that damn desk, I realize I left the house without my fucking ID on me. It's like, son of a bitch. Because, of course, that's the first thing they ask for is, you know, they need your ID and to know who you're there for and all that stuff. And it's like, you know, and my mom got her ID out, and I looked at the guy, said, if you need my ID, I need to go home and get it. And he's like, you'll be all right. It's like, all right. That's good, because I really don't want to go, you know, 20 minutes back home just to come 20 minutes back and all that fun shit. So, yeah, he said he just had to take a picture of me with their little camera that they had for the little badge thing that I got. So it's like 4:30 in the morning-ish by the time we get over there, and he's already in a room and all this stuff. You know, and, okay, more shit. She brings this big bag of stuff. You know, it's one of those Aldi's reusable bags, and it's really big, and she's got his pills in it, she's got a bunch of snacks in it, she's got, you know, Diet Coke, and, like, some other miscellaneous odds and ends, and, you know, I brought the 2 bags that I had the other day for the eye appointment, or the eye surgery. It's like, just in case, since they're already still mostly together, and I don't know how long I'll be there, or, you know, what I'll be in the mood to do or not do. Well, I didn't figure I'd be in the mood for a whole lot, since I was really tired. I still am, because I haven't taken a nap yet. Yeah, why are you looking at me again? Hi, thank you. Hi, you too. Too much love. Okay, thank you. So, we're there. What happens then? Oh, right. As we're getting ready to go in, I said, we don't need all this stuff right now, do we? And she said, no, we probably leave most of it in here. And then proceeds to take out things like, she takes her pills out because she brought pills for this morning and this evening just in case. She brought her Diet Coke. She had her big Stanley cup full of water, but then she had like the smaller cup that had her coffee in it. She decided she wanted to take the coffee, but it's like, you know, the pills, the pills, the Diet Coke, the water. She leaves those things. That was literally like all she left in the car. And hi. She doesn't like it when I'm gone all night. I don't like it either. Especially when it was at bedtime. Stop it. So those were the things she left in the car, of this big ass bag. She can, you know, of course she needs to take the meds in there because they want the record of what he's on and all this shit. But, oh, and a bag of candy bars and stuff she left in the truck. So then as we're going in, you know, it wasn't right then. You know, she's got this broken arm. I got my purse and my sweatshirt. And she's got this big ass bag and her purse and her coffee. I didn't feel bad for her. I wasn't going to take it because she just said she was going to leave most of it in the car and proceeds to take most of it. This is really distracting. So yeah. She didn't say anything going in. We got signed in. He gave us a card with the room number that we were going to, and then opened the door so we can go through. And we're walking. And I hate walking with my parents. Either of them. Because they walk so damn slow. And I was like, I take like 2 steps and pause. And another couple steps and pause. You know, and yet I'm still like 5 to 10 feet ahead of them at all times because they walk so damn slow that, you know, it's painfully slow, right? So, you know, I'm doing the normal thing, just doing my little slow walk, and she's walking in there behind me. And as we get ready to turn this corner, she says, "Look at you, not you carrying just that little bit, and I'm carrying all this stuff." And I just looked at her and said, "You were the one that said you were going to leave most of it in the truck and proceeded to bring it with you. So yes, you get to carry it." So, yeah. Which of course, you know, people see her walking around with her broken arm, and, you know, I'm making her carry things. So then it looks bad on me, right? Which, Hi. We get to the room, and please don't get excited. It's not that time yet. Just chill, dude. So we get to the room, and I don't remember. They said they were going to take him for an ER, or not to the ER. I think he was in the ER. They were going to take him to... You're going to fall off the bed. She's sitting on like 3 pillows and then just starts sinking. No, I will shut you out of here. 29. Hey, it's 2:22 because of course it is. Stop. They said they want to take him for an MRI. He did the CT scan, but they didn't really show anything. There was like a little blip that could have been something, but they didn't really know because that wasn't really the best thing for checking for strokes, right? So they were going to do an MRI, but they didn't do it just at that point, right? So they had a few other things they wanted to get figured out first. So we're sitting there, and of course, you know, the nurses are coming in and out, and you know, asking for the backstory. And it was just like, you just see, you know, that whole, the victim part of my mom, and just how poorly put upon and all this stuff that she is, and just, oh, this devoted wife, and doesn't know why things are so stressful. And it's just like, she makes me nauseous watching this. She, like, you can clearly, like, if you really If you know her like I do, damn it. It's like you can literally just see that, just like this little gloat of she gets to, tell her sob story and get sympathy and, get the supply she's looking for and all that bullshit. And yeah. Somewhere in there, I got really irritated with listening to everything. Today is payday. And I got an email last night saying that, how much had gotten into the account. It was like 5:30 this morning. I was like, I'm getting the damn storage unit. That's what I'm going to do. So I sat there next to my mom, but I had my, I was twisted, so my back was against the other wall, so she wasn't able to see my phone unless she saw anything reflected in my glasses, and she wasn't paying that kind of attention. But I went ahead and, paid the rent on this storage unit and like the startup fees and all that crap. And it's a little 5x10. It's like, I figure since I'm still living in this space, I don't need a huge amount because, I'm going to start just like, okay, I'm going to start in the shed, and like, I know I have my kitchen stuff out there, so I'm going to probably drive the truck around and throw it in the truck and then go back that way. Right? And just whatever I can do that way. However, since my father is in the hospital now and my mom is going to stay the night again, yes, I have time where I can actually work on this stuff, right? And yeah, so that's okay. So here in a little bit, I'm going to go to Walmart and get the lock for the door and another can of my my aubergine spray paint. So, because that's like my go-to color, and like I ran out of one, and then I had a whole new can of it, and it won't spray, and then I had like this grape kind of color that's a similar one that it was a clearance paint, and it's like not working either. I was like banging around on the can, and I got it to spit some paint out, but it was without the top on it, and it was a whole lot of effort, and mainly it just ended up on my hands. So it's like, this isn't going to work. So I'm going to go get another can of that. Oh, quit it. Man, I'm licking my pants again. So, yeah. So I did that, and it felt pretty damn good when I, committed to doing that thing. And then I read something a little bit ago on Instagram that was talking about how, the universe loves to see when you're taking the forward steps, and even if you can only see this one thing, you're at least moving on the one thing that you do know about. So that the storage unit came up the other day because I realized that I had told the story about how I left my ex for good like the week before, because I was also revealing to myself the next step, right? Which was, the first thing I did with him was get my separate bank account and have my most of my paycheck go to that one so I could get the storage unit. But then once I got the storage unit, then I was just like, being all stealthy about packing shit up and getting it out of the house. And it worked out well. So then I realized I've been talking about it because that's the next step, right? There's threes, and I'm going to pause this. Okay, so we're outside now. I don't want to play, so they're just got to do their own thing for the time being. She's going to start pestering me here in a minute anyway. But yeah, so the storage unit, it's like that was the next step. So I finally made the moves, and I got that handled today. So yeah, I need to go get my lock here in a little bit, and then I'll bring the truck around here and start throwing my stuff from the shed into that, so I can throw it into the storage unit. And the funny thing was when I filled out everything online for, like, this place doesn't have a home office, so I should have a package here. The mail's here now. Damn dogs. So yeah, I had to do everything online. and like my tenant ID number has 555 in it, and the temporary gate code that they gave me that didn't work at all when I tried it had 1111 in it. It's like, ooh, this is clearly something I'm meant to do. So like that was first up, kind of like a little pat on the back because I did the thing and it was in alignment. It was like confirmation that I was doing the thing I was supposed to be doing. Shut up! He scoffed. Yeah. Yeah, and I watched another Dr. Ramani video where she's talking about the scapegoats and all this stuff. It's like, yep, registering loud and clear. It's like just all that stuff is just on point. And yeah. So that's that part of the game plan. And there's a bunch of like planners and stuff out there that I fully intend to take with me because honestly, I'm the one that does anything with yard work. Like as far as, hey, my bike can go too. Sweet. I noticed that was in the shed, the other shed the other day. It's like, that can 5555. I mean, I've had it forever, so I could also just sell it, but yeah, I'll take it. But yeah, like my mom's not gonna miss that. My dad won't, notice anything. Anyway, he did have the MRI done, and they said that he has had several little strokes, and they have affected each side of his brain. And one of the things I was talking to my brother about today, because my mom was just talking about, his personality's just changed so much and all these things, and it's like, I don't think it has. I think he's always been a dick, and now that he doesn't have access to me and my brother's energy to make him feel better, he's just more of a dick. So, and yeah, maybe he's having these strokes now, but he was a dick before, so that's not what, he hasn't changed that much. He's just less able to hide it. Because this is the same damn man that, 2023 called me a dumb bitch, but even back to when I was 8, started name calling me when I was getting bullied at school. Because clearly if you are being bullied at school, then the appropriate option is to also be bullied at home, right? Fuck these people, dudes. But yeah, so then when he told Gracie that he didn't like her, it's like, maybe he's had one or more of these in that time, but it's not that it's a change of personality. It's he doesn't have access to the good energy now, so he's just got to sit in his own misery, and miserable he will be. And of course, especially those two together. I talked last summer about how I was seeing my dad's birth date everywhere, and I was kind of starting to wonder for that situation if I was getting like a hint that he was like soon to be going, right? And then of course, a couple weeks ago I had the video where I said that he's dead to me. It's like, I don't regret saying that, but I also feel like part of what he's been doing, like the following me around and trying to go to the spaces that, okay, like, I told reminded my brother about the, the deal with the couches, right? So I always sat on this one seat that's closest to the bathroom by the little end table in front of the kitchen table. And like when my mom and I used to watch a lot of movies and shows and stuff. And when he retired, he took over that spot. And fine, whatever. I mean, it's his house, his couch, right? So, whatever. But he plops, right? And broke the couch. But continues to sit in it. And of course, also pees all over himself. And yes, where's the depends? Sure, but his whole house smells like fucking pee, right? Because it's still an issue. And he won't clean up after himself. But he's like literally following me around and trying to get in the middle of all of my stuff in all the ways that he can to get access to my energy again. And I'm not doing it. So like, you know, when he leaves his coffee cups on the table, I put them on his desk. So it's not in the way, but it's also not put up. You know, and okay, so the couch. So the one seat I sat on all the time. Then he broke it and made it smell like pee. So then when my mom wanted to watch a movie this other day, I sat on the other couch. And it's not near as comfortable, but it is what it is. And I don't know how long after. It was pretty quick when he realized I was sitting there that he shifted from the one spot to the other couch, you know. And it was when he first shifted, it was on a day that they had a towel on the one couch because he peed so much that, you know, that's how you can sit on the couch now if you don't want to smell like pee, is sit on the dry towel. And you know, he got up when we were watching the movie because he didn't want to watch the movie, which is fine. But then, you know, he leaves the room and I look at my mom and I said, okay, I said, so there's this towel on this couch. And she said, yeah, because it has a smell. And it's like, yeah. I said, but then did you notice now he's sitting on this other couch on your blanket? She's like, son of a bitch. It's like, yeah. And I was talking to my brother and a friend at the time, and I was like, okay, what I did that time was there's this other couch. It's like an oversized armchair that used to be my brother's. And it's leather, so usually it's kind of a catch-all, and like all the folded blankets get put there, or all the blankets that just aren't being used get put there. And so that's where they were. Well, I decided since he was sitting in the spot that I had moved to, I was going to sit on that chair. So I toss everything off the chair and I sit on the chair. To finish that thought. When I did, you know, I sent my brother this message, and, you know, the friend at the time, and was like, he's going to sit in this spot if I forget to put the blankets back on it. And of course, I forgot to put the blankets back on it for some damn reason, and you know, it's the short-term memory thing. It's flaky. But yeah, so I forgot to put the blankets on it. And of course, the next time I see him, you know, it's like the next day, he's sitting in that chair. It's like, because of course he is. Because that's literally what he's doing. He's literally just trying to follow me around and go into the places that I sit the most and try to make me clean up his mess. And I'm not going to do it. And I don't care what the health concerns are at this point in time, because this has been my lifetime of issues, right? That he's always been doing this. He's always been saying the mean things. He's always been trying to force me to clean up after him, and, you know, or whoever, you know. Sometimes it's my mom. Sometimes it's usually me and my brother. Of course, not so much since my brother's not here, but when he and his wife moved back up here from Oklahoma, they did live here for a while when I was in Alabama, and they had that experience too, so they know very much what I'm talking about when I talk to them about this stuff. Yeah. Since I mentioned the friend, I had this thing that I came across this morning. Or was it last night? I don't know, it all runs together. This is sometime over the middle of the night, I think. And it talks about sometimes the universe brings people into your life to help you basically course correct. That wasn't how it worded it. That was how I worded it when I commented. But, you know, it's like you're not quite aligned with where you're supposed to be, so it brings you the thing to kind of remind you to fix yourself, right? I was like, you know, I said, I realized that is something that I had happen, because back in the fall, I had this day where I was kind of struggling to really remember who I was for the sake of myself, right? You know, struggling with the toxic family things and, you know, just inclined to forget who I'm here to be and to learn what I'm here to learn and do and all those things, right? Because like you know, going back to like the damn bear picture, right? You know, I submit these pictures to a contest the zoo's having because the only prize I knew that it had attached to it was the possibility of the picture being a centerfold. And it's like nobody else had commented on these pictures that I thought were great. So it's like, well, maybe somebody else in this area will, since it's a zoo magazine, right? So I submitted these pictures. There were 3 of them, and my bear picture was the one that won. But within a half hour of finding out that I had won this contest and my bear picture was going to be the centerfold, you know, my parents found a way to shit on my day, and I realized that that's why I haven't been able to do more in my life, is because I always would shift to self-sabotage because I knew they were going to try to destroy anything I tried to create. So it's like, well, what's the point of even trying? Because they're going to ruin it. You know, that's like the guaranteed thing, is they're going to try to find a way to ruin it. And of course they did. You know, but it was just for that day, that time, you know, but I did spend most of the day crying on and off because I was so aggravated with just like this series of things, and because they got access to my energy because they made me feel like shit about something that I had just won, something I should be excited about. So yeah, I was having this day where I was kind of not feeling fabulous, and I was like, okay, so maybe it would be nice to have a friend who could, you know, remind me of who I am in the times that I forget. And so it provided. And this friend comes along, and he's one of those types that just says all the nice things every day, and good morning, beautiful texts and all this shit. And it's like, that's a bit much though. You know, but it also forced me to work on my relationship with compliments as well. Because I've talked about those. I never received compliments that weren't backhanded from my family. So, you know, like the time my mom called me in her room to say, you're a very pretty girl, but you don't act like it very much. Or that when she pinned me in the laundry room to look me up and down and say, I was about your size at that age. I was like, okay, so what am I just like online to be as big as you now, and that like that's what the purpose of that is? You know, that kind of stuff. It's just like, fuck this nonsense. But yeah, so then, you know, I have struggled with the compliment, and so it was something that helped me to kind of work on that to some extent. But then it got to the point where he's talking about, you know, these things. Basically, I shared too much to try to push him back because, you know, like this whole twin flame thing is a big thing for me. It's been the driving thing behind my whole journey. And then, you know, like we had this conversation in person, and he basically tried to spin it to make him that person. It's like, you're not that person. You know, it was still enough that it kind of knocked me, it provided me with a wobble in my whole, like, energy, because it's like, there's that egoic moment of, what if this is the best thing possible for me? It's like, there is no way that is the case when, first off, it's a married dude. So, number one thing that doesn't line up on. And the other thing is, like, everything has literally pointed to this connection dancing around me my entire fucking life, right? So, stop it. Just stop it. Yeah, she had she went to the relaxed look. She was just staring at me like, why aren't you throwing this thing? And then my fingers locked up. But yeah, like, then he like crosses over and tries to put himself in this position as like he's the one. It's like there was the wobble because old me continuously freaked out about being alone because that's how we're conditioned basically in this whole culture. We're not supposed to be alone. Like that's supposed to be like the worst thing ever, right? And it's like, quite frankly, I like my company better than most of the assholes I've been around. Especially when it comes to my family. And I have no problems going to a restaurant by myself and eating. Like that is perfectly okay with me. That is not a problem. But yeah, it's like there's still just that momentary wobble. And then like the next day, like he keeps sending me these messages that were kind of like the same stuff that was really uncomfortable. And it got to a point where I said, okay, some things have been said that have crossed some boundaries and I'm not okay with that. And I said, I feel like you took this thing that I told you a lot about. I said, I probably told you more than I should have. But I was telling you this because I was trying to get it through your head that I already have somebody in mind. And that's like literally the driving piece behind this whole journey for me. Right? So, then when you're trying to insert yourself in it, and by the way, aren't you still married? Because he mentioned at one point that he had filed for a divorce, but then, a bunch of other stuff happened and it didn't go through, and there's 11111. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, no. And like, as soon as I gave the spiel, it was like, oh my God, you're so right. I'm so sorry. And then he just started like apologizing over and over again. It's like, I'm not encouraging this or discouraging this. I said, whatever you do on that end is on you. I said, I'm not a part of that. I said, I'm telling you, enough, no more. You're not it. And that's all there is to it. And, there were a couple attempts at trying to maintain the connection, but then it's just like, no, I don't want this at all, I don't think. And yeah, we haven't talked since. So well, there was one day I sent him a picture. It was like I took a picture of a bird, but the bird happened to try to fly off right as I went to, or as I clicked it. So it was just like the tail feathers. And, I sent the picture to my brother and to him, and it's like, why did I send it to him? What is the purpose of that? And it's like, because after I sent that spiel, and then there's like a little bit of conversation, then when he was like trying to connect in the next couple of days, I didn't respond at all. But then for whatever reason that day, I sent a message first, and then I was like, why did I do that? What was the point of that? I'm not okay with that either. So, yeah. And then, I kind of asked for some universal assistance on that one again. But, what I was saying in the comment was that I had asked the universe for somebody to help remind me who I was so I could stay focused in the times that I was struggling. And the universe provided me a lesson showing me that I need to be the one to be able to validate myself with like whatever approval I'm seeking, whatever, any of that stuff. It's like it has to come within first, or I'm not going to be there. Like if I am relying on somebody else to help me remember who I am, then at some point it crosses those boundaries, and then it becomes, who are you really, right? That question comes back in, and then back into the struggles again. It's like, no. So I was like, I just like ended it with course corrected. And now I just don't talk to anybody except for my phone. Well, and my brother. But even then, it's like we're not talking as much as we were, which interestingly, he and that friend have connected more, which they have before, because they have a lot in common. And it's like I told my brother that they should probably spend more time talking because I thought they would really get along. So now they talk more, which is good. And I'm not part of that. But yeah, still, it was just a weird thing that came up, and then I had to realize, one of those hard lessons. It's like, fuck. Okay. I feel like my voice is starting to go. Yeah. Okay. Back to the other stuff, because that wasn't all of it. I told my brother, it's like, I really feel like the deal yesterday with my grandma was enough to basically make my mom realize that connection isn't the one that's going to work anymore. So now she's trying to like pull my dad into her bullshit even more. And he said something about he very much considers them, well, basically my dad goes along with whatever my mom wants him to, right? So if things are good, things are good. And if things are bad, then he's got to like suck it up and find a way to make it better for her and, get the obstinate children playing their roles again. So, he starts, God, the other day, my sister-in-law sent a message about, oh, no, I didn't finish that story on here either. Okay, so I've started telling that story a couple days, and I forgot it both days. Or, like when I finally got around to it, I introduced the thing and then wandered off somewhere else. So on Mother's Day, of course everybody's fawning over that damn baby and baby grandpa. There's no doubt in my mind that he was not just jerked right back into another body. So I think my aunts mainly and my grandma pushed to have Gracie hold him. And apparently Gracie had said no, but they weren't satisfied until she held him anyway. Maybe that was part of the problem. Anyway, my mom sends this picture to me and my brother and my sister-in-law that my dad was a part of. It was the group chat, where Gracie's holding the baby, and Gracie's got this kind of uncomfortable grin on her face and doesn't look like she's enjoying it necessarily. But then my grandma's in the picture with them, and she's just staring at that baby like she's got a fucking vendetta. It was like, it's like, my sister-in-law was like, that is not a good picture of your mom. It's like, no, it's not. It's like, she looks like she is out to make my grandfather's energy and this new life form suffer because, because he went first and all that bullshit. No. So yeah. But it's a really bad picture, and the baby is just kind of staring off. I'm just like, there is no way that is not my grandfather reincarnated. And that's how I've explained it too, is I feel like the cords in this family, the energetic cords, are so tightly bound that they didn't let him go. They just jerked him back into this other body because my cousin has this she's cooking this new life form in the oven, and then my grandfather finally kicks the bucket and just jerks him right back into the next one because that's how the family is. That toxic yuckiness, which now that me and my brother have disconnected from it, it's like we're really able to see. She's cocking her head at me. We're really able to see it in a whole nother level how really toxic everything is, and he said something about the realtor that's trying to sell their house has been commenting on how just nobody is interested in it. And I said, we need to go to Inner Path and get some actual sage and do a cleanse of your house, because I said I'm confident our mother has like put some kind of hex on it. Now it might be unconsciously, I don't think she's actually aware of it, but she's definitely sending bad vibes to that whole situation. And it was just Wednesday that, you know, when we were over at the surgery center for my dad's thing, that she said she hoped it didn't go through for a while. And when I said, yeah, but for how long? And she said, well, maybe indefinitely. You know, so she's definitely sending them that bad energy, right? And, you know, he's been really sick here lately and had all sorts of stomach problems. And Gracie is having these new issues where she's randomly terrified to be in the house, like at weird times. And I guess yesterday she was having my brother go upstairs, and then they were going downstairs, and they were going back upstairs, and they were going back downstairs, because she just could not settle. And I told him, it's like, I said, you need to find the sage. I got a sage spray that I gave him. I said, you need to make sure you and your child are using that daily. And we need to cleanse your house as well, because I am confident she has done something where like the energy around the house is like nobody is drawn to it, because she's sending them her ickiness, right? And when he was talking about the other night, she was like so distraught that she had to end up coming over here to stay all night at grandma's, right? And she said something had spooked her, but she didn't really. My phone's at 15% now. Yeah, I'm gonna go plug it in. Hold on. Okay, but she had said that something had spooked her. This is Gracie, and so she had to come over to grandma's. I was like, you know, I am confident she's pulling on. Yeah, I said she spent a lot of time over here. No, I'm going to lock your ass out of here. She spent a lot of time over here with my mom when she was little. So, of course, she got those cords pretty tight too, right? Sorry, ZB, have to get you more in a minute. Her water bowl's empty in here. There's other water bowls. She just wanted this one. But yeah, it's like, I feel like since we didn't know what was going on to try to protect her from that at all, it's like those cords are still good and established, and it's like I don't know that we'll be able to like completely disconnect them. I said, but we definitely got to prioritize doing some energy clearing stuff, because I guarantee she is the problem. And you know, she's very much like trying to send bad juju their way, and thus nobody's interested, you know. And he said like one of the things that he's really noticed is like all these houses in their neighborhood are popping up right and left, and it's like others seem to be getting more hits and more having more interest on them. It's like, yeah, we gotta do a cleanse because that's not a good situation right there, you know. And of course, since, you know, when I told him that our mom had said that the other day, he's like, I figured that was the case, but he said it didn't really, you know, he can't prove it. It's just one of those things. It's like, I feel like this is what's going on. But yeah, it's like, why do I feel this way? I don't necessarily know, but I feel this way, you know. And don't start. There, hold my hand. That's okay. Now she'll scratch her butt. I said, have you noticed? I said, she used to be a really good cook. I said, but here lately, it's like everything she makes sits like lead. He's like, I have noticed that. And I said, you know, I watched this video. I found a new creator that I'm like, I completely love what she is doing. It's what's her name? Monty Mater, I think. Like, she goes, like, one of the things I watched her talk about the other day, she was talking about, building these rock solid arguments against, like, the fundamentalist types, and, the people that want to pick and choose what they're using from the Bible, what they're living with, but what they're actually putting out into the world. And she said that she went to this passage where Jesus is talking about you will know go out there then go. She's like, I don't want to go, you're shutting the door. You will know the fruit or the tree, if it's good or bad, by the fruit it bears, right? So the good fruit being love, patience, kindness, all those things, versus the greed and all that stuff. And she said, it's, just by watching people what they're putting out there. And it's like, that's something that I've really noticed with my family, especially my grandmother. Because it's like, she doesn't have a nice thing to say to anybody. It's like, she's the most miserable person I know. Therefore, I can't stand being around her, because she's literally a nightmare. And, that picture, I would show it to you, but I'm not going to show you my grandma. But that look on her face, she's just like, it's like, ugh. It looked creepy as fuck. And, it's like, that's always been the thing with the family. Like, that's what has been so unsettling. It's like, if you annoy them, if you fall out of line, they're going to talk shit about you behind your back, because that's just how they are. But, it's like, I don't know, like my grandma walking around the kitchen and she just like talks shit about herself and like, what did you do that for, stupid? That was dumb. And, just saying like all this hateful shit. And then, it's like that's literally everything. Like if there's a thing to be said about, okay, she and my grandpa would watch the news and maybe it's the weather woman, maybe it's the I don't know, some woman on the news. At some point, they would sit there and be like, what is it? Make comments about how ugly she was. And it's like, you realize that what you're doing is pretty damn ugly too, right? And later years, I was more inclined to call them out about it. Now I'm more inclined to avoid my grandmother like the plague, and thank God my grandfather's finally dead. That's just where we're at now. So, but that was my life. It's like I always had these things that, I was like really anxious about and didn't know where it was coming from. But then now that I've seen, this energetic thing playing out and realizing where it is actually coming from, it's like, these are some miserable people and I'm ready to not be around them anymore. So now I have my storage unit, and as soon as I wrap this up, I'm going to go to Walmart and find me a freaking lock for it, and then possibly get some stuff out of the shed to take over there. So I can feel like I've done something, and especially since, yes, my mom is planning on staying at the hospital with my father. At first she was saying she wasn't going to, and I was just like, really? You stayed with your daddy the whole time? Like, every single time he was in the hospital, you were there overnight, like, draining the life out of herself to give it to daddy. And, then eventually he finally died, right? And honestly, on that end, she's been flaky as hell ever since she was spending all that time there. And it's like, I think she was literally just like pouring all her life force energy into trying to keep that man alive. And then when I told her at some point it has to be okay for him to die, it was like it finally pushed her to release it enough to where she was able to let him go, and then he finally died. And then, then she gets to tell everybody, my daddy died, like every time she turns around or whatever. And it's like, cool, something to get sympathy over, you know, and she was flaky as hell because she's giving him all of her life force, right? And now, because she was basically the one, okay, my grandmother was the first enabler because she, of course, chose to marry the man, period, and, you know, let him get away with all his bad behavior and being a dick to everybody and all that kind of bullshit. You know, and, you know, he's that kind of upstanding dude that when his wife was pregnant and walking, or, you know, they're walking somewhere, he's standing several feet in front of her with his father, you know, and they're walking separately from the pregnant woman. It's like, how fucked up is that? It's like, she's pregnant with your fucking child. It's like, that just shows that you have no business having a child because you're not mature enough to be with the woman you fucking knocked up. You know, she's just telling me like stories like that. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like, why did you go along with that? And just like, you know, it's like, I know how those toxic connections are because I've lived them that's been my whole life, right? You know, and then because of the toxic family, I ended up in my own toxic marriage, right? And that was why that had to crumble. And it's like, when I divorced my ex, it wasn't just divorcing my ex, it was divorcing that whole way of life, because now I'm ready to fucking divorce this fucking family. Get me the fuck up out of here. You know, and let's be done. Let's go to something else where things don't suck. I think the dogs are kind of sensing that there's stuff going on too. Of course, I did take them with me when I went to check out the storage unit. I had them all in the car, and I opened it up to see what it looked like on the inside and see what kind of lock I needed to get. So, yeah. And Ziva, I got back to the car, and she's just looking like kind of terrified. It's like, honestly, I think my parents are sending her bad energy too, because, you know, it's like, you know, she'll have moments where she seems like she's really slowing down, and then she'll have moments where she's like really bright and perky. And they've been pushing the point of, well, she's really starting to look old all at once. It's like, you fucking leave my dog alone and get your bad juju out of like her space. You know, and I know that, you know, my dad's trying to spend more time with Taz, and it is with the intention of trying to gain access to my energy too, because, you know, these guys, I mean, they're mine. You know, they're with me damn near all the time. And so if he can access them enough, he can have some kind of access to my energy, right? And try to suck the life out of me again. Because that's all they know how to do. So I think the strokes that he's had are directly related to my mother sucking the life force out of him, because she sacrificed so much to try to keep her daddy alive, and then he died. So, yeah. You know, and my aunt's kind of the same way. And it's like, anytime I spend too much time with her, I definitely feel like I'm dumber just by being around her. So it's like, she's literally just trying to suck the life out of people. And I had that dream, that Nosferatu dream, that, you know, it was something with my mom's energy. And like, that's all I really remembered was, you know, the word Nosferatu. And then it's like, when I looked it up, it said that it was like another language for vampire. And it's like, it's like, I knew it was vampire related. I didn't know what exactly it was, but okay, if it's just vampire in another language, that makes perfect sense. You know, but I had this dream where, somebody was saying that about her. It's like, yeah, that's absolutely, abso-fucking-lutely. Yeah. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And Gidget is looking at me already. She's going to give me the side eye. So I can go get my lock and get a few things over to the storage unit before, well, Oh, that's another thing that happened today that was annoying as fuck. She's like, damn it, you're talking again. She's like, why? You were so close. You almost were ready to say the thing. But then you didn't say the thing. Yeah, so my mom's friend, the one that I was doing yard work for a couple weeks ago, and that I'll be dog sitting for next week, she called my mom when we were at the hospital earlier, right? When I was still there. And it's just going back and forth. She told my mom that if she needed things to let her know and she would bring them up, right? And then I was trying to leave. Oh, that was another point too that I missed. When I was trying to leave, my mom was on the phone, but then she told the friend that she would call her back because, she had to follow me out, because she needed me to bring in that Diet Coke, those candy bars, and that water that she'd left in the car last night, and her pills, because she didn't want to take everything in. So she left just the odds and ends that would have been easiest to leave in the damn bag. Because then she had to make me come in after, or to bring them back to her. And then she didn't even stay. Like, we were talking briefly, and I went out to the truck, and I was already irritated at her about something. I don't remember what it was at that point, but I think it was probably this point that I had. It's like, you had this big ass bag, and you left these things that you knew you were going to want, knowing that I was going to leave, just so I would have to bring them back into you. Right? So, yes, that's the kind of person she is. And she did. So then I come back in with the shit, and she's wandered off to the other side of the goddamn room to, make me have to go in further than necessary to give her shit. It's like, fuck you and your stupidity. You're conniving. Fucking vampire. Yeah. So the friend says, if you give me a list by 12:30, I will bring this stuff to you because I have to be in that area. At 11:30, she sent me a text and said, your mom is really bad about calling people back. And I said, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And she said, well, I asked her if she had anything she wanted me to bring up there, and if she had it, if she knew what it was by 12:30, I would bring it to her. And I said, well, I'll figure it out, right? So I call her up and say, do you have anything you want? She says, no, I'm not going to stay all night tonight. I'm going to come home. So then, of course, we're into the position of she's going to need a ride, right? And yeah. So she's going to need a ride, right? That was where that left at that point. 12:30, right? That is when the friend needs to know by so she can come pick the stuff up to take it over there. 12:39, my mother sends me a list of what she wants or what she needs. So what I'm inclined to do is, if I get that stuff together, I might not. I haven't decided completely. She also wants either me or my brother to take the computer to Greenfield because she got it locked up again. It's like, you tried to let somebody into it that you shouldn't have again, didn't you? And she's like, no, that wasn't it. She said she clicked something and just locked up tighter than whatever and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're literally just looking for ways to make us do your fucking bidding so you can feel like you have access to us again. If I do take her stuff, I'm inclined to leave it at the damn front desk and be like, hey, my mom's supposed to pick this up, but I can't take it to her, and then leave. But then there's that other part of me that's just like, fuck you. You don't need your shit because you can figure it out by 12:30, because I could have sent it with a friend, but she was just trying to make it so I have to go back, right? But I don't have to go back, and, going back to that point of, that voice. The one day when my cousin was asking me to take him to his job interview an hour away for this fucking job that's an hour away when he just moved back to New Pal, it was like, I was driving the dogs to the cemetery and that voice just popped in, that intuitive voice, and it was just like, If it is not a hell yes, it is a fuck no. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of feeling that fuck no thing. So she just might not get her shit today. I might put it together anyway, and then if one of her sisters says something about, do you need anything, then they could take it, but I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling. I'm feeling first like I'm going to go to Walmart and get my damn block, and so I can work on getting shit out of here. That will be one thing is like I have this, it's a cedar chest that my dad's mom had that I ended up with, and it's currently got some toys of Gracie's in it. I think I'm going to bring a big tote in and dump the toys in there so I can take that thing over there. Just because I'm just at the point where I just need to start thinning stuff out and taking it away from this space so I can separate it from their stuff, and then their stuff's not creeping in trying to take over my stuff. You know, like I talked about the other day with my skate stuff and how I always put it on my dog's crates, right? I pull it out of the bag and spread it or put it on the dog crates so it can air out. And then one day there's a coat on it and a fucking Trump hat. And then another day there's a fucking blanket on it. It's like, never used to have that kind of stuff. But since I'm not cleaning up after them, they're having to move into my space more to try to force me to do the things that they want me to do so they can have access to my energy again. And it's just like, I wore these earrings, the little flippy finger earrings, because they seemed appropriate. Yeah. I put those on like before the firefighters even got here. It's like kind of trying to piece everything together. Got the necklaces on because I'm going to have to be around these parent people. And it's like, you know, had the pocket rocks and everything. It's like we're trying to block everything because I don't want that shitty energy anymore. Yeah, so I'm going to wrap it up and do this again because she's so funny when with this. So she knows it's coming. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.